Hi, this is Joe Banye for FastPitchPower.com, and this is a part 2 in a series of videos in which I'm going to try to explain and demonstrate how certain or lack of physical capacity contributes to technical flaws in the windmill delivery. Now, in my last video post, I began to speak about a really common technical error that my athletes will come to me with and will ask me to help them fix. And I try to defer that responsibility to Phil and Carly, but it's important for me to speak the same language and to use exercises that not only show them why they might be having that problem, but also reinforce some of the mechanics that they feel as though are going to improve that skill once they get back to their pitching lessons and into their games. Okay, and I'm going to talk about those today. Specifically, the common stubborn flaw we're talking about is premature turnout of the drive foot. Okay, so if I'm a righty pitcher, I'm speaking about my right foot turning out too early before I propel myself toward home plate or as I propel myself toward home plate. And I think that distinction is important because I think many athletes might have this problem, but it actually happens at different points in the delivery. One is during the stance phase, during the load. They just load into this toe-out position, which I believe is that athlete finding their home of stability over one leg, which is a very inefficient position, and that could be caused by a few things, as I'm going to talk about in a second. The other group of athletes, they'll begin to toe out just after they shift in over one leg. As they begin to propel themselves toward home plate, all right, they seem to turn out as well, but it's just a fraction of a second later. All I know is that a lot of athletes have this problem, and there's a few common physical capacities that need to be improved for both groups, whether you toe out over the stance phase or if you toe out prematurely during the propulsive phase of the drive-through. Okay? I know those might not be like technical softball terms, but as an outsider, that's what I see. Okay? You can either load and toe out, or you can try to drive through and toe out too early. All right? Either or, you're going to end up in the same position, and it's going to lead to the same technical disaster later on in the delivery. Now, I'm going to quickly review the body parts and the issues at each body part that your athlete or you might be having, you might not even know about. Okay, and the compensations that ensue when you have these restrictions or weaknesses. And this is coming from a strength and conditioning professional. I hope you see, if you have these, how it is corroborating your technical issues in your pitching lessons or your skill acquisition. The first thing, let's look at the ankle. Okay, from a movement specialist side or a strength and conditioning professionalist assessment. Okay, if I don't have adequate flexibility at my ankle, okay, so the ability to drive and track my knee over my toes, all right, with sufficient range of motion, okay, we're going to have an issue. And the susceptible direction of movement, okay, the place that my body's going to try to find range of motion if I don't have adequate range of motion in this direction, okay, is to collapse the knee inward. Okay, it's much easier for your knee to collapse inward than it is to track over out those toes. We tend to lose that range of motion for a variety of reasons we're not going to go into. Okay, we need ankle flexibility. All right, we need ankle flexibility for an adequate load. If we don't have it, as I load into this foot, my knee's going to collapse inward. If I sense that my knee's going to collapse inward, for you stance phase turnout athletes, you're going to get here before your ankle has a chance to do so. Because your body knows that if I begin to collapse inward, I'm going to lose balance, all right, off my intended path. Now that all happens really, really fast, and I'm slowing it down. But it's a natural compensation, and when I say natural, it does not mean normal. Okay, so to review, if I don't have adequate flexibility at my ankle, the compensation is going to be inward. Okay, the ensuing compensation is for me to turn my toe out so I don't lose balance and to keep my intended path toward home plate. Early stance phase toe out. That's one reason. That may not be the case in your athlete. Okay. Now, we're going to move up the body into the knee. Now, a lot of girls will say, that's just the way my knees go. Like when they squat, when they stand on one leg, their knees fall in. It's my knees' fault. It's not your knees' fault. Your knee's stuck in between your ankle and your hip. So we just addressed the most common inefficiency at the ankle. We're now going to look above the sandwich and look at the hip. Okay? In females, we tend not to have hip mobility issues, but we tend to have hip stability issues. Very, very common, not only in females, in every young athlete. When this hip is weak, the direction of susceptible movement is to pop that hip out. That's where it wants to go. I talked about in the last post about cutting power. If you were to cut the power on the body, where would it just collapse? It would go this way. The hip's going to pop out. Now again, if I'm in my stance phase and I know my hip wants to go this way, I have to arrange my foot underneath it to maintain my intended direction toward home plate. Okay? Because it's going to turn my body in the same way that a tight ankle will. Okay? Turning myself almost toward the first base side if I'm a righty pitcher. But again, that's not what happens. It's what would happen, and your body is smarter than that. It knows it has to get from point A, the rubber, to point B, home plate. So it's going to do what it can to maintain alignment. We have the ankle. Tight ankles can affect stance phase compensation. We have a weak hip, can affect stance leg compensation, natural compensation. Again, natural is not normal. It's not efficient. It's just where your body wants to go. The third thing is the weak core. So we have tight ankles, weak hips, and a weak core. This is something that strength and conditioning professionals know, movement specialists, physical therapists know. If you have a weak core and go back to one of my first video blogs, I talk about how when we're talking specifically about young females, most of the time we're talking about controlling extension or this hyperextension through the lower back. And we want to maintain this neutral position. Well, if I stand on one leg and I extend too much through my lower back, there's a predictable pattern of compensation over that leg. And when I extend, I pop my hip out, my knee falls in, my foot flattens out. And from the hip down, that's the same exact compensation strategy as when I have tight ankles and when I have tight hips. Now, you have all three of those things, and it's not your responsibility to figure out which one exactly is your athlete's weakness. If you have a daughter or an athlete or yourself, you're young and haven't done any kind of strength and conditioning or physical preparation, you can work on all three of those areas and be better off for it, and you probably should be. Okay? But now, for that second group, the propulsive phase group, in which you maintain good stability and good alignment, and all of a sudden you lose it. You have a moment of greatness, but then you lose it. You turn out too early and you end up in the same position as those stance phase toe outers. Okay? You might have a theoretical separate set of deficiencies, and I'm suggesting that you have strength issues. Okay? You lack the ability to propel yourself, and you lack the propulsive strength to get extension through the hip, through the knee, and through the calf, complete extension, in time, and explosively, and fast enough. Okay, so your body ends up in this position. Now, talk to a physical therapist, not myself, talk to a physical therapist, a more qualified movement professional, and you'll see that normal humans, non-athletic humans, do this in everyday life. Okay, they walk with their toes out. They walk with a toe turnout. They lack propulsive strength just in normal gait mechanics, normal walking mechanics. This is common, and you can bet that if you have a tendency to walk or to stand like this and to be in this position, you're probably going to lack the athleticism to explode and to get terminal extension away from the rubber in something as explosively elegant and coordinated as windmill delivery. So again, it's a common theoretical deficiency. Okay? That coordination of extension between the hip, the knee, and the ankle, all complete and exhaustive, is what your group lacks, as differently than from what that stance phase toe out position. This is more of a stability or an ankle tightness issue. In the propulsive group, you guys just need to learn how to exhaust all the horsepower through your hips, your quads, and your calves. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a short routine of preparatory or strengthening exercises that you can use with all of your pitchers, regardless if you've already kind of categorized them out as pitchers pitchers who turn their toe out in the stance phase, pitchers who toe out during the propulsive phase. Disregard all of that. It's important for you to appreciate, but now I'm going to give you like the salient take-home exercise corrective strategy. A couple exercises that you can do and instruct regardless if you're a strength and conditioning professional with all of your athletes before their pitching lessons, practices, at home. They're not only exercises that isolate the specific muscles and joints, they're also going to hopefully reinforce the coordination of the body, the communication between professional and athlete as it relates to the ultimate goal, and that is utilizing that new strength into the delivery.